Welcome back, everyone, to Coach to You. I'm your host, Coach Regina, and I am back with another video. Today's topic will be navigating trauma and the loss of identity. Now, guys, I'm going to tell you, it took a lot to get this video for you guys. I recorded the video 3 times without sound, and I was not aware as to what was the culprit to why the sound wasn't available. I told you guys before that I'm a little new to podcasting and recording, and so all my videos come unfiltered, unedited, and so I was not aware that the previous 3 videos did not have sound. So stay with me, guys, all the way to the end of this video because you don't want to miss whatever it is that is coming forth out of me to be able to reveal to you guys, to give you these tidbits of information that can help you overcome the complexities of trauma. My name is Regina, and here we go. Let's get started. So, before I get in, let's give my disclaimer. Although I'm a student of psychology, all information and content on my video stems from my personal experience and extensive research on the topic and is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered a professional medical advice. If you feel you have a mental health condition, seek the guidance of a medical professional. All right, so let's jump in, guys. Now, first thing, I want to let you know that there's going to be 2 parts to this video because I want to make sure that I don't overwhelm you with a lot of information. And so I'm going to break it up in 2 parts, okay? So, navigating trauma and the loss of identity. The loss of identity during trauma can occur through several physiological and psychological mechanisms. Here are some of the ways that this can occur as it begins to erode your life and your sense of self. Number 1, disruption of core beliefs. Trauma often challenges fundamental beliefs about oneself and the world. Individuals may come to see themselves as vulnerable, unworthy, or unsafe, leading to a distorted sense of self image. This can create a disconnect between their previous identity and their current feelings. Let's give it a real life example for right now. I've made the video 3 times, right? And each time I know I had really put my all into the video. But if I attach my sense of self worth to making these videos, rather than just being able to connect with you guys and being able to give my authentic self while I heal and you heal in the process, that could have placed me into a state of depression, anger, and anxiety because I may have felt like my needs had not been met because I tied my sense of self worth to creating these videos. However, I reframed the situation. I actually just laughed it off. I laughed literally hard, guys, because I was like, okay, there has to be some underlying force that is not wanting me to get this content out to these guys. And so that gave me the resiliency to push through and continue despite all of that. Okay. So I want you to know that I really gave it my all. Okay. All right, let's continue. So disruption of core beliefs. Now let's tie this here. That was a everyday scenario in regards to how I deal with it, right? But let's talk about the vulnerability and the sense of unworthiness or the feelings of unsafe that you feel when you after you have experienced trauma. I talked to you guys before in my video about managing emotions and how trauma can cause you to once your emotional state becomes heightened, what happens is you begin to disconnect from the authentic version of yourself, and you have essentially utilizing the ego with its familiarity and patterns from subconscious programming to try to navigate the complexity of that situation, right? So you could immediately become you know, anxious, fearful, or whatever regarding a your distorted sense of self-image because of what may be occurring in your life at that moment. Okay. Let's talk about number 2, and I'll get into each one of these a little bit more, but I really want to just kind of get into it, but and stay on track. Okay. So let's get into number 2, emotional numbness. Trauma can result in emotional numbing of this or disassociation, as I mentioned earlier, where individuals feel detached from their emotions or themselves. This sense of disconnection can make it difficult for them to access their true feelings, desires, and identities, leading to a feeling of emptiness or confusion about who they are. Emotional numbness is very one of the most common responses due to trauma. It's almost like trauma goes through like different phases, right? Where you go through a shock, where you go through a sense of denial, like not believing that this happened to you. Then there's victimizing mode, and then your ego kind of kicks in and give you something to help you reconnect to some form of normalcy. And so emotional numbness is where you just try to detach from all aspects of the experience. Okay, utilizing that from everyday scenario. Let's say that um, you experience a, a experience where you have to use like your defense mechanisms. Okay, and you're typically going around the person that may have hurt you, that where the traumatic experience originally occurred. You're going around them, so you're basically being reintroduced to the influence of this individual after this particular experience. If this is a family member or someone that was close to you, that where the trauma was experienced, like in my case, you will end up building some form of emotional numbness, so that you're not considered the uh, culprit or the, let's say, the villain every time you're in the situation. Because what happens is your emotions build a resonance and a pattern of how you begin to associate with different experience. Every time you're introduced to that person or familiar situation, you begin to feel that emotion like it is happening all over again. So emotional numbness helps you to disconnect from it, and being able to be in those environments around those particular people or circumstances without having to let out your true feelings. Okay. Number three is role change. Experiencing trauma can force individuals to adopt new roles or behaviors for survival. That, what I just mentioned, being one of them, numbness. These particular behaviors may not align with your authentic self. And so, for example, someone who was confident may become overly cautious or withdrawn or after a traumatic event, leading to an altered self-perception. If you're a person that was once very trusting, a very carefree person, and so forth, you may now take on the role change of someone who becomes hyper vigilant, very fearful, and anxious, and it's not who you are. But this is how trauma affects the brain. The trauma changes the chemistry of the brain, and so in that, your brain has to learn how new ways of being able to adapt to life after these experiences. And so in that, you may take on a role that you generally wouldn't associate with had you been not have experienced that trauma from the start. Number four, internalized shame and guilt. Now, many individuals blame themselves for their trauma, even when it is not their fault. This internalized shame can lead to feelings of unworthiness and diminished sense of self, causing them to question their value and their identity. I can definitely resonate with this one because that's basically what happened to me. I walked around with being, so much shame and guilt after being molested and, at an early age, that I was unworthy or I was unlovable. You add that with the fact that my mom abandoned me at age 2 years old, and I was placed into the care of, some relatives, and I did not know how to adapt to those circumstances. So, because of the original blueprint that had been given to me from my upbringing, apparently there must have been some form of abandonment or rejection in that. And then these experiences that you encounter in your life act as triggers to begin to open up the doorway for these things to begin to manifest in your life. Okay, so walking around with internalized shame and guilt is something that I carried so long in my life. And every time I would have relationships or jobs or different things like that, I would instantly, carry the guilt and the shame of whenever something went wrong. Because of that, my over time, it diminished my sense of self worth and my sense of value and how I saw myself uh, as it relates to others and in the world. Okay, loss of trust is number five. Trauma can shatter trust in oneself and others. When individuals can no longer trust their own judgment or abilities, they may struggle to maintain a coherent identity. feeling lost or uncertain about who they are and what they stand for. Now, this one here is also very crucial as well. A loss of trust is not only just in loss of trusting others after you have been violated by experiencing a traumatic experience. It's also a loss in trust of yourself, because what happens is you begin, as you're taking on this role change, you begin to compartmentalize the different parts of the of people and how they would treat you if you weren't a rape victim or things of that nature. So you begin to lose trust in yourself. Why couldn't you protect yourself? Why couldn't you, fight or defend the person off of you? But let's face it, these feelings are not associated with someone who is trying to. They're not helpful for someone who's trying to overcome those traumatic experiences, and they only lead to further diminishing of self worth as you continue to allow these patternized thoughts to continue to stay resonant within you. Okay. Understanding how trauma begins to affect the brain is really crucial, and to being able to understand how you have to gain awareness in order to adapt a new set of identities or discover the identity of who you were before the trauma. This has been the path that I have been on in my own life, being able to discover my value and my self-worth before I have been afflicted by those circumstances. It doesn't happen overnight. And often it often takes a lot of internal work in order to build a sense of resiliency and emotional stability after such experiences. For a long time, I dealt in a lot of self-sabotaging behaviors because I did not know who I was. And that's what I mentioned earlier about the loss of trust, the loss of identity, the loss of your original state. Okay, I tell you a lot of times in my podcast regarding how trauma affects the brain, and I tell you that trauma causes disassociation. So disassociation essentially is a disconnect, and it's a great divide. Well, we're not realizing at the time when we're disconnecting or we're disassociating is that if you can't take ownership for running your life, then the ego is what kicks in and becomes the governor of your life. The problem with that is that the brain acts as a computer. Okay, and just like if you purchase a computer and you pick it up from the store, well, that computer comes with pre-programmed hardware that you can utilize for its efficacy. Programs like Google, Adobe, um, Acrobat, and different things like that, and Microsoft Word and so forth, they come pre-programmed in it, and therefore, when you boot that system up, you're running the programs that were pre-programmed into that hardware system. Now, that's just the way it is when, as a child, when that child is born, that child is given a blank canvas. Okay, and the only thing that child has is the hardware that it came pre-wired with. So life's adversities and circumstances and the environment in which that child grows up in are essentially act as triggers in order to cause that hardware or that system to be able to run. But the caveat to this is that the ego is using programs from the subconscious that do not fit every situation. This is very, very important. The ego is using information or patterns that do not fit every situation. So for someone who has experienced trauma, I told you earlier, you have what's called a resonant emotional state, and basically how you begin to adapt to emotionally or physiological to life's adversities, right? Well, once that system is already activated and is triggered and so forth, well, let's say you're presented with you're in a relationship and that person betrays you, that person breaks your trust. Well, you're initially you got to think about it. Now you don't come out with anger, you don't come out with fearfulness of that people are going to hurt you. Remember, these are pre-programs that are lodged in the subconscious that the ego uses to help you navigate life, and oftentimes it's running off the blueprint from past emotions, past societal conditionings, cultural influences, environment, and all and other conditioned beliefs that come down from your bloodline. Okay. So when you experience this betrayal in this relationship, your body begins to associate that trauma. Your mind also begins to associate that trauma as though it's happening right now. It's not able to differentiate that that is a past experience, and the ego is also not able to differentiate it. So it's going to utilize that which is familiar, okay, and which is patternized from that blueprint to help you navigate it. Now, let's say that residency is hypervigilance, scarcity, uh, fear, worry, stress, whatever it is that may come up. Okay, that's basically how you will respond to that situation without the awareness that you have the ability to choose. And that's the caveat to understanding all this here, is that though you have this pattern or this pre-programmed hardware there that you experience from your life, navigating the trauma and the loss of identity involves the awareness that you have the ability to choose. Being able to choose activates areas within your awareness, such as reframing. Cognitive behavior therapy, you can utilize tips such as reframing, as okay, this does I do not have to attach this betrayal to my sense of self-worth. I am worthy of good relationships. So being able to approach the situation where you would probably lash out at the person, become angry or dogmatic, you can actually go to the person and discuss the situation from a more a comfortable situation standpoint, where it's not going to be detrimental to or lasting to that relationship. For example, being able to let them know, I want to sit down and talk. Okay, you crossed the boundary when you violated me and XYZ occurred. If you can approach that situation from that standpoint, rather than becoming angry or aggressive at that situation, now what's happening is you are now creating new neural pathways of being able to handle things with new emotional resiliency. Okay, that's one way, the awareness and being able to reframe the situation. Another aspect of it is learning new information. As you put new information into that system, you begin to also create new neural pathways, because the brain takes information and stores it, not all of it, okay? It stores it, and it keeps that information for what may be useful for past times. But if you're constantly recycling old information, old programs of unworthiness, guilt, self-doubt, fear, and all these other different things that no longer serve the desired reality that you have, then you're not able to navigate life's complexities. And then what happens is, because life is patternized or cyclic, just like you have summer, winter, fall, and so forth. When you realize you're going through these experiences, and then you're continuously repeating the same patterns, and you're not understanding why. It's because in order to navigate life's complexities and discover your true self, it involves being able to gain the awareness that you have the ability to choose, and you have the ability to acquire new information that supports the reality you desire. When that happens, you're able to build your life by design rather than by default programming that was given to you from the pre-programmed system that from birth. This is something that I can share with you guys because I wasn't aware of it. So the research, the inner working that I had to do, it affords me the ability to be able to gain not only gain the awareness for myself and heal emotionally, but I'm able to bring this information to you guys as well, because the areas that I just mentioned to you: disruption of core beliefs, emotional numbness, role changes, internalized shame and guilt, and loss of trust, is something I dealt with, and I know it all too well. When you're going through those difficulties, your body begins to develop a feel for the chemistry of those emotions: the anger, the fear, the unworthiness, the self doubt, the stress, all this different, these emotions. they become familiar, and the ego and the body, they are working hand in hand to get that familiar chemistry back into your experience. But what happens is that what happens when you desire a new life? When you make a conscious decision to say, I want something new out of life, and I no longer want to could stay adapted to the situation that was given to me at birth. Being able to choose that is your first building point, right? The second aspect of it is being able to navigate life by having a new emotional responses that serve you rather than act as self-sabotaging behavior that are become a hindrance to you. Having relationships that are supportive, sitting with yourself and allowing that your mind to calm down, okay, um, is crucial to being able to gain this sense of awareness for the life that you truly desire. I mentioned our brains acting as a supercomputer, as a computer. The brain processes uh, 80 billion bits of information per second. It's not retaining everything, but it does process a lot of information per second. What happens is the brain can become overloaded, and it needs time to rest. Okay, we only give it that time during sleep. So your brain is trying to process all that information, all that data throughout your sleep and rest. What if you consciously chose to give your brain the ability to rest through practices such as meditation and mindfulness, journaling, or taking short walks where you quiet your mind, listening to some residency of that you want to input within yourself, such as residency of love, joy, happiness, confidence, and so forth. What if you did that rather than constantly feeding your mind negativity, media input, the news, uh, chaos from your outer environment, and so forth? I'll tell you what happens. Your brain has the ability to build new neurological pathways and being able to help you navigate lives and being able to create the life you deserve. And again, one of the things I really, speak about is being able to create your life by design rather than default. You are the one that has the ability to choose this situation. No one can choose it for you. Everyone has experienced some form of trauma in their life, and in that trauma you lose your sense of self. Gaining the awareness that you don't have to stay there is where you become empowered. It's where you come to the resolve that even though I had a bad day yesterday, I had a setback where my videos were recorded and I didn't have any sound, I don't have to attach those things to my sense of self-worth. Recognizing that each and every one of us has the ability to restore our true self despite the challenges and setbacks that we face during trauma. It starts with the awareness that you have the ability to choose. I'm going to do part two of this video because there are several other parts to this, such as isolation, changes in your interests and values, as well as re-experiencing the trauma and how to reclaim your sense of self. My name is Coach Regina. I want to thank you guys for listening. Stay tuned for part two of navigating trauma and the loss of identity. Thank you.